Hi, all. It's me, your favorite CEO. I know I haven't been around a lot lately. I apologize again. That's because I've been busy, right? Starting this company, getting it going. And also, I had to take a little bit of a break from social media. I'm not going to lie. I just feel like what's been going on in the world everywhere, which I alluded to briefly in my last, hi guys, in my last live, just about the state of the world. You know, I had to take a step back and think about it a little bit. I neglected to mention everything that was going on in the world, and some people were critical of that. I personally felt so overwhelmed by all the images and everything that we've been seeing in terms of Afghanistan and Lebanon and California and Louisiana and Alabama and Mississippi, and just so many things that have happened. And, you know, as I said, compared to what's going on in the rest of the world, it's really nothing. But to have your apartment flood, that was not the most fun experience that I've had. And not just flood with water, but flood with sewage and, you know, whatever. So here we are, and I'm really actually excited today, finally kind of getting back into the swing of things and figuring out where I can help. And I'm sure you're all figuring out where you can help in the world as well. But today I'm talking with both the founder and the director of the Chick Mission. And it is their goal to preserve fertility rights and fertility options for people who are cancer survivors or who have been diagnosed with cancer and are going to have to go through some kind of treatment. And why this is so important to me is that we spend a lot of time at State Of thinking about all the ways that people get to menopause. And very few people talk about the entire medical menopause journey, which I think is incredibly important. You do not come to this chronologically necessarily because of age. This is because of a specific other medical condition. And in the case of the Chick Mission, they are talking about cancer. And a lot of times when you are diagnosed with something like cancer, it is the last thing in the world an oncologist is going to talk to you about is medical menopause, right? I mean, that's not their job. They are there to help you treat your cancer. But again, the Chick Mission realized that there were going to be a lot of people, and we're going to get stats from them actually, who are diagnosed with cancer and then left with terrible choices, or at least not even given those choices or educated about the choices that they have when it comes to their own fertility. And that is something that I thought was really important to talk about and to talk about their mission, because what they are doing is incredible. So Amanda Rice is the founder and Tracy Weiss is the director. They are both cancer survivors. And I, for the first time, am going to try and do two people at the same time live. So let's see what happens. Okay, I know Tracy is here, your request, and then I'm waiting for a request from Amanda so that we can all do this together. Hello!
1 out of 2. So far, you nailed it.
1 out of 2, and like that's saying a lot. Just to get 1 out of 2, I'm really excited. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It is such a pleasure to re-meet you. And
I talk a little bit about this re-meeting. Let's start there before we get to the Chick Mission. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, I do want to. The Chick Mission is also requesting a space in this room. All right, let's make sure we've got both of you. But I want to talk about how we met the first time.
there she is.
Oh my God, your hair looks incredible.
Well, thank you. Do you like my outfit?
Is it a bathrobe?
No, it is a robe from my oncologist's office. I'm here.
Oh, okay. Even better. Exactly. I was going to be like, God, if I had known, I would have gone bathroom chic too.
Yes.
But being in your oncologist's office, you look fabulous.
I know,
right?
right?
Whatever the hell you
Coming to you live.
I'm happy to talk with you. I'm so happy that you're here. We have a lot to talk about with the Chick Mission. And I'm sorry if I started like sort of with a Debbie Downer. I know as well as you do, there's so much going on in the world. And sometimes, you know, we need to take a break. But what you are doing is one of the most incredible missions, really, that I think is out there. And I would love to talk to you both about your experience, both with cancer and how you decided to found the Chick Mission and what you're doing to help women make smarter choices when it comes to their own fertility and their own health. So welcome, Tracy and Amanda.
Thank you, Stacy.
Now, Tracy, do you want to tell me how we met?
Yes. Many moons ago in my pre-cancer life, I was an associate producer for some talk television, and
Oh,
then up in talent management at an agency. And I was in the audience for your talk show where we all, Oprah style, got free JetBlue credit, which was, in my mid 20s, like the gift that kept on giving. And you were asking people in the audience, what would help them have more confidence in terms of dressing. And
mm.
I'm 5'8" and I'm incredibly awkward and I never learned to walk in heels. So you had me come up on stage, taught me how to walk in heels, and you said, Tracy, you've been such a good sport. You can take any pair of shoes from the back wall display of the set that you want. And I was like, really? And I picked up something that looked just like Ruby slippers. And you said, girl, those are Valentino's. Put those down. And came out with a beautiful pair of brown plaid Sam Edelman pumps, which are back in style.
Oh my
I
God.
still have today.
I'm sorry I didn't let you keep the Valentino. I'm sure somebody told me I wasn't allowed to give them. But oh my God,
I
that's
think
such memories. Wonderful memories. I mean, I got to say one thing about my old talk show, Fashionably Late, was we gave away great presents to the audience. All right, so let's talk. Now I really want to talk. I hope you can walk in heels and you're less awkward now.
I am.
Great. Happy to hear it. But let's talk about cancer. Let's talk about medical menopause. All of these things I think are incredibly important. And also how you came to this mission. There's a lot of information here to give to people that I think is so important. Again, medical menopause has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with what happens when you have a prior illness that is going to throw you into menopause. So Amanda, tell me a little bit about your journey. I know that you are a 3-time cancer survivor before 40, which is amazing. But that must have been a very difficult road and also taught you a lot.
It absolutely did. And even you starting, this conversation just now and addressing some of these major issues in the world and all these overwhelming things, that's exactly how I felt. I was stuck. I was just trying my best to learn this new language and what was going to happen to me and how do I even process this as a young, healthy New York City career woman. And ultimately, you learn things slowly. And as a young adult, you have different things that you are faced with. And one of those things is ultimately that a lot of treatment will leave you infertile and will lead to medically induced menopause. And so just taking a step back and learning about your body and your cycle and knowing you're born with every single egg you'll ever have. And then you're going to have something like chemotherapy, course through your body. Of course, it's going to damage the eggs that you have, and you have to do something about it. So education is key, and then acting. Freezing those eggs before you start treatment is what we try at the Chick Mission to, lend somebody either, the information or provide monetary assistance to make them choose the right decision for their future.
All right. And the monetary assistance thing I want to get to in a second, because that's a much bigger thing. And Tracy, you're a cancer survivor as well, and you're the director of this foundation. How did you two meet, and how obviously you could bond over the fact that you had both been diagnosed, but how did you bond over this idea that we lose certainly a sense of our own agency over our fertility when we are diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah, and that's something that Amanda and I absolutely bonded over. I was 30 years old. I had cervical and uterine cancer. I ended up having my ovaries transposed during my partial hysterectomy, so I would not go into medically induced menopause should I need radiation. And
Now, I'm sorry, can you just tell people what that means? Means to have your.
You're 30 years old. You barely know why you even have a cervix, and you end up having a hysterectomy. And what they did for me is, because I was so young, they took my ovaries and they literally tacked them to the bottom of my ribs, because the plan after surgery was to have radiation, which would have put me immediately into medically induced menopause. And by doing that, it took the ovaries out of, harm's way.
Mm.
And I would like.
I'm sorry. Look, the question there is, did you have an oncologist, because this was cervical and uterine cancer, who was talking to you about the possibility of medical menopause and how to avoid that, right?
Threw it in there as like a free gift with purchase. We're going to go in, we're going to take your uterus, we're going to take out 20 to 30 lymph nodes that are affected with cancer. And while we're in there, we're going to take those ovaries and we're going to tack them to your ribs. And I said, okay, well, what will happen? And they said, well, you probably will go into menopause a couple of years early because your ovaries have no one to talk to and it's lonely, which I get because that's how I am too when I'm by myself. But they didn't say how, they didn't say when, and they didn't say what to expect. And now 11 years later, I read content like yours and being like, am I perimenopausal? Is this happening? But, you know, on that journey in that moment, it almost was an afterthought. And so was my fertility preservation. It was an afterthought because, like you said, surgeons are radically, as they should be, fixated on saving your life, but they don't think about the quality of the life after with the explanations about fertility preservation, potentially medically induced menopause.
Yeah.
And Anza and I were introduced by a mutual friend, you know, weeks into, you know, her big chick mission idea. Something that we bonded over was not only do you feel a little bit of betrayal by your body, but you lose complete control over the future you thought you were going to have. You wake up one morning and you're a daughter or a partner or a kick-ass career girl and a really good friend, but then suddenly you're a patient. And what are you supposed to do with this onslaught of information coming at you? And you don't really get to have decisions or choices because you have to see this cancer journey through. And what the Chick Mission does is here's information on how to take control of your future fertility and your body back.
Right. And I mean, again, one of the things that I also find that we are so aligned about is just this arc of women's health, right? I don't believe that women should be reduced to their reproductive health worth, right? That's not what we are as women. And again, I'm very well aware that, you know, while we have this conversation, not all women choose to have children. Not all women want to freeze their eggs. But what I think is really essential about your mission is that you're educating women to have that choice.
Yes.
What it means to freeze your eggs. And I want to talk about that a little bit. When we, you know, for somebody, I have not been diagnosed with cancer. And I remember that when I was about 34, 35, actually, it's funny. My sister said this to me. Her doctor's appointment with her gynecologist at 34 was radically different from the one she had at 35. And I started laughing because I felt the same way. Immediately hit 35. Everybody said, start freezing your eggs. If you're not having kids right now, you've got to do it. You've got to do it. You've got to do it. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I don't want kids, so I'm not going to freeze my eggs. But for women who either are young and haven't made that choice yet or want the option of having children, this is how the Chick Mission got started. Is that correct? That you both felt you wanted to have children and you didn't want that opportunity taken away from you?
Yeah, I wasn't even sure. I wasn't sure. I was dealing with so much at the time. You know, I was married, but I'm not anymore. There were a lot of things that, you know, I was trying to take in and I wanted options. That was the thing. So
Yeah.
regardless if I was 100% sure I wanted to have children, I wanted to have that option.
Yes. Yes. And so when did you start to think of the Chick Mission and how did you come up with this idea that we should be educating people, particularly women who are diagnosed with cancer, that one, medical menopause is a possibility, and two, what you can do in light of that, right? Knowing that medical menopause may render you infertile or just even radiation may render you infertile. How did you decide this is the Chick Mission's goal and how were you going to help educate people?
Yeah, I mean, it really started with diagnosis number one, sort of exploring, getting educated on what was happening to my body and the potential. There were two paths ahead of me. One included chemotherapy, one didn't. I chose the one at that time that didn't include it. But ultimately, when I got diagnosed for the third time, I had to go one direction, which was chemotherapy. And luckily had some funds saved to do this. But at the time, Stacy, I had great health insurance. I had fertility benefits, but they wouldn't honor them because I had cancer. I wasn't infertile to them. So I wasn't infertile yet. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I lost my mind. I decided that this was just so incredibly unfair. Women's health. reproduction, all these things that just drive you bananas. How dare you try to use some loophole to get out of covering the cost of this? And very fortunate to have the resources to do it, but I just kept thinking about the others that didn't. And Tracy felt the exact same way.
So tell me a little bit about the Chick Mission's mission, right? You are in a position now, and one thing I do want to say is just, this insurance loophole shit drives me crazy, because I just feel it's always constantly stacked against women.
Yeah.
And through, even when we start to talk about menopause, medical or otherwise, right? We are not afforded the same kind of healthcare that has been developed for men. And it's like, it's just way too long for us to have to wait to figure this out. There are things about women's health that are not identical to men's health. They cannot be seen or treated or dealt with through this kind of patriarchal lens. And, women like Amanda and Tracy are trying to do something about that. So when you realize that you had funds, and that not everybody does, to make the same choices that you made, what did you decide to do?
We had to gather with the strongest women that we knew who understood what was happening, right? So a reproductive endocrinologist, a dear friend who lost her mom to cancer, Tracy, who went through cancer as a newlywed and 30-year-old, my mom, who watched her daughter go through cancer 3 times, a best friend who sat there with me during chemotherapy numerous times. And then ultimately we brought on another board member more recently that has struggled with fertility challenges. So like-minded powerhouse women who weren't going to take no for an answer, who would not be afraid to ask people to donate to a cause that's very specific. And, ultimately our mission is threefold: educate, advocate, fundraise. And let's make this problem, let's solve it once and for all and go out of business.
It makes us really unique as a nonprofit organization that our ultimate goal is to be out of business. Because if all women understand how their body works and know what to do when they are fraught with this cancer diagnosis, and all 50 states pass legislation to cover fertility preservation for patients, and there'll be no more need. There'll be no more need for the Chick Mission. But as it stands now, if you think about it, if you're diagnosed with breast cancer at 34, which is the last year you have the pleasant conversation with your OBGYN, you're going to go through treatment, surgery, call it 2 years. Then you're going to be potentially on long-term drug therapy. Suddenly you're 43. And if you hadn't froze your eggs, you don't have the choice, because as lots of women start menopause as early as, these years.
39.
Exactly. And I think that it really goes hand in hand. So what comes with education and information, as we all know, is power. So our volunteer board, we have about 40 women and 1 male across the states who are ambassadors for our cause, who just keep the conversation going. We talk about the heart issues. We talk about cancer. We talk about medically induced menopause. We talk about even the vanity that comes with those things. I've had all kinds of weird conversations with people about, sex after cancer, or dressing yourself after medically induced menopause when your body changes. And all of these things for women used to be taboo. And now we have to just be really kind of loud and proud about it and have as many conversations as we can about reality of our bodies, realities of our psyches, and realities of our future.
And, look, I think you bring up so many good points here, because it really is a question both of us getting out of this mindset, labeling yourself as all of these things, and then the last one being patient, right? Or even survivor, right? These things only work as labels if they work for us, if they, help us advocate for ourselves. And so I really appreciate what you said about that. I also think that it's so important that what you're talking about is really about choice and agency, and being able to help women who are unable. And I want to talk a little bit about, how you help women financially to freeze their eggs if they're not able to do that. But also just this idea that we are having children later as a society. It doesn't necessarily need to be cancer that is the impetus, but here it is. This idea that if you freeze your eggs, you are giving yourself more freedom on the other side of that. And medical menopause, now look, medical menopause can last a long time, or it doesn't have to last very long at all, right? And ladies, I would ask for your guidance here if I'm correct. But what I understand is that this is something that can last a while, and then you may go through chronological menopause later. So these are all things, I mean, having to deal with that more than once, I don't wish on anybody. But then again, the medical menopause is sort of the PS at the end of that sentence, right? I mean, that's what you were saying, Tracy, this idea that it was sort of tacked on information in terms of your cancer. Now, of course, we want our oncologists to worry about cancer. But have you been able to bring that wider, broader educational view, not just about choices when it comes to fertility, but about the effects that you are going to experience if you are going through cancer treatment? Has that been part of your education as well?
Yeah, I think we try to pass along our personal experiences and those that we hear from those that reach out to us. So I talk a lot about the anxiety and depression that I felt after treatment was over. I also talked about battling those first 2 years. I would get a shot every 10 weeks to keep me in medically induced menopause. And with that came the night sweats and the hot flashes and changing to different sheets 7 different times. And, I didn't feel as womanly as I once did, and all these things that come with it. So I think those are all really important things to talk about. I'm really proud of our entire team for just kind of passing along that information and being real. Cancer is a very word. So is menopause. I became very public about it because I don't want people to be as scared. Just this is just what has happened in my life and many other people's lives. Let's not be so scared of it. There's amazing treatment that's being brought to the forefront every single day. That's why so many of us go on to live long, healthy lives.
And certainly in terms of fertility, I feel like that conversation has been much more prevalent, culturally than it ever has been before, right? I mean, we talked about pregnancy, and I think that women always had this feeling that if they weren't glowing and happy, that again they'd failed somehow at being pregnant, right? Then we talked finally about postpartum depression. Then we finally started to talk about infertility and this way in which women can feel inferior, can feel that they somehow failed. And again, I am very much against this idea that women should be reduced to their reproductive health in terms of their worth. That's not who we are as people. That's not who we are in terms of illness either. So this idea of being a patient and being reduced to your cancer does not say anything about your full life or the life that you intend to have after you have conquered it, right? Which is always the goal. We always want all of our cancer patients in remission. But the understanding of a life with and alongside cancer is, I think, very hard for some women to understand in terms of fertility and in terms of menopause. So never before have I heard of anybody who is actively trying to get women to understand their options when it comes to fertility in the face of cancer, right? We've all been, trying to help people when it comes to cancer, but not every aspect of their lives. So fertility for you became an issue because you knew that you needed to freeze your eggs, Amanda? Is that how that started for you?
Part of it. I was older. I was 37 when I was first diagnosed, a career woman in finance. And I did actually, a few years prior, go to look into freezing my eggs. And I didn't pull the trigger at that moment. But, I think science and technology have come such a long way, especially in the fertility space. There's so much amazing medicine out there. I think it really gives you your power back to take control of those decisions, right?
But those kinds of treatments, many of them result in medical menopause.
Yeah. And
I'm sorry, that was a question.
surgery, drugs, all the things. Yes. Chemotherapy, radiation, all of these lovely things can cause menopause.
And Tracy, you said that you were in medical induced menopause. And Amanda, are you in menopause now?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not. They prepped me, and I'm not.
You're not. You're not. Right? You're not.
I'm not. I'm on the cusp of Perry. I'll let you know when it happens.
Well, okay. So first of all, this is so funny to me. I have a bunch of friends who will say to me, I am not in menopause because it's somehow some dirty word, almost the way, right? The way people are like, the cancer is people go, the menopause, right? And I'm like, guys, all of this is like, these are not things that we should be shying away from. Amanda, as you said so eloquently, I think really the point is to have these conversations, to talk, to be vulnerable, to tell people about our own experiences, because once we talk about our individual crises, experiences, whatever you want to call them, it makes it that much easier for other people to talk about it too. And that's how we normalize the conversation around health altogether. And, you know, I applaud both of you, obviously, for taking this on. But Tracy, I'm laughing because I have a bunch of friends who are like, I'm not in menopause. I'm not in menopause. I still get my period. I'm not in menopause. And I'm like, well, you probably are. You can still get
Listen, I'm in that moment land.
You know, but I'm laughing.
If there's a quiz being like, do you get your period? No, I don't have a uterus. Do you have hot flashes? No, I don't. Like, maybe we should put that on the website for Stata.
Yeah.
I feel like it would really be helpful to know.
Yeah. I mean, look, and you know, one of the things that I think is so difficult, again, with medical menopause is who are you turning to, right? As I said, like, Amanda, I don't know what kind of cancer that you were diagnosed with, but I understand in Tracy's case, when it's uterine and cervix, there is going to be somebody talking to you about your reproductive parts. Though, you know, or even maybe even with breast cancer. But what I wonder about is when you are diagnosed with a cancer that is sort of unrelated to your reproductive health, that to me seems like it's so much harder to get doctors to talk to you about what could possibly happen after, or certainly why to even think about freezing your eggs.
So it's interesting in the case of breast cancer. So I was breast, melanoma, and then breast again. And with most breast cancer, they do testing and they want to know what exactly is feeding your tumor. Is it ER, which is estrogen receptor positive? Is it PR, progesterone receptor positive? Or is it HER2? So these are, you know, lots of scientific mumbo jumbo, but ultimately most people are ER or PR positive. So in order to keep you safe post mastectomy or lumpectomy, whatever it is, they have to put you into medically induced menopause so that you don't absorb estrogen or progesterone in your body. And that prevents any stray cancer cells from growing. And so that's like
Oh, just lost you for a second there, but
end up in menopause.
Right. Okay. I think that's actually really important because, again, this idea that breast cancer is directly related to the way that we talk about medical menopause, I think is lost on some people, or any kind of cancer, right? That this cancer could be, in fact, fueled after treatment by progesterone or estrogen, is exactly back to where we go with hormonal health, right? These are all of the same things and why they're so closely connected. But I want to talk a little bit about, and I just want to make sure because I made notes for you guys. That's unlike me. I want to talk a little bit about some things that you have coming up. So you are doing something called the Great Egg Freeze. Tell me a little bit about that. I love any kind of
I love
campaign. I love.
It is our answer to the polar bear plunge. It is family friendly. It's to raise awareness and, of course, dollars for our Hope Scholarship Grant Program. But what's amazing about
We want to talk about the Hope Scholarship, so we'll get to that in a sec.
And what's great about the Great Egg Freeze is there's so many ways to get involved. If you're a rank and file human being and you want to find out, you can go to greateggfreeze.com to make a virtual video to show yourself literally jumping in with Chick Mission. We also have plunge parties coming up this weekend in New Jersey, Detroit, Michigan in October, Denver in November, and the finale in Austin, Texas in December.
Wow. So, okay, tell us what exactly is the plunge? Like a polar bear plunge?
Exactly right. And we love when people get creative. We've had people dump water on their dogs, get fully dressed to the shower. Amanda and I jumped into
Dump water on my dog. That would just never happen.
We jumped into Glacier National Park, kind of on the fly. Pools, running into bodies of water, any way that feels chilly to you.
We
Right.
two
Okay.
great men wear chicken
Yeah,
suits
sorry.
and
Yeah,
jump in.
breaking up, but what she said is we had two amazing supporters in Detroit, Michigan, who jumped in a pool in full chicken suits. And then also raised $20,000 from their networks and family and friends to get them to do that.
Wow. I mean, okay, now I feel like that's a challenge that's been put to me. I'm gonna have to figure out how I can yeah, do the great egg freeze plunge as well. I'm not going to pour water on my jug, but I'm going to think about something that'll be fun and creative. So tell me a little bit about the Hope Scholarship Fund that the plunge actually is helping to support, because this, I think, is the most unique and most important part of your mission. Now, that's not to say that everything else isn't, so please don't get me wrong. I love how much you are educating women about their choices and about their bodies, and that's also what we try to do at State of Menopause, in as many of the same ways as we can as possible. But the Hope Scholarship, now this is something really special. Not only are you trying to work with insurance companies and doctors to help cover costs of women who want to freeze their eggs, you're also trying to change legislation.
Yes.
Is
And
that
this was something that we, really got passionate about when we first started the Chick Mission, knowing that there were actual bills that were being introduced to change the law forever as it relates to this matter for both men and women, really motivated the entire board and all of our volunteers. As we before, we want to be out of business, so let's do the right thing, because science has caught up, and there are these options open. We know, the governing bodies of both cancer and reproduction have said you must preserve your fertility before treatment. That is what they say. So let's get insurance companies to start covering this. And now, fast forward, 10 and a half states have changed their laws as it relates to this. We don't need to go there, but we want to fix it the rest.
That's 1/5. We're on the way,
And then
right?
we need a federal bill, and we're going to get this done. And then this is going to be the thing that everybody knows somebody who has had cancer or has struggled with infertility. Let's make this the norm for cancer, and then let's make it the norm for everybody.
And what we haven't spoken about yet is,
sorry, go ahead.
I said, what we haven't spoken about yet is, with the Hope Scholarship Grant Program, we've helped 167 women since we began on Valentine's Day, 2018.
Wow.
And doing that, what happens when you hear those words, you have cancer? You really only have 2-3 weeks at most to freeze your eggs. So if your insurance company isn't going to cover that cost, you don't have time for a GoFundMe. You don't have time to hit up your friends and family. And that's where the Chick Mission comes in, where we can say to you, this is one last thing off your shoulders. You're worried about mortality. You're worried about bills. You're scared about treatment. You're unsure when you can go back to work, what your body is going to feel like. This is one less thing you have to worry about. And in doing that, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years after your initial diagnosis, you can decide what you want to do about your family. And I think that that's the thing I really wanted to shine some light on, is the urgency. You're already terrified. You're already overwhelmed. You're already scared. But you have to do this, and you have to do it before you start. So where the grant fund comes in.
Which is just so amazing and admirable, and I love it so much. I guess my next question is, when it comes to legislation, and you talk about 10 and a half states, and you want to do this at the federal level, I know this is something that you have been involved in, and it has yet to pass. What is it that we can do? How can we help you in that fight? In terms of the kind of legislation that we want to see across the country. And again, we're seeing the kind of horrific abortion, laws that are being passed in Texas. So how do we fight against this? In terms of your mission, how do we fight against these kinds of laws? How do we get the medical and the legal, kind of federal legal establishments to understand that they have to work together? Because to me, there seems to be a huge disconnect between what we understand medically and what we are doing in terms of government legislation. How, can you explain some of that to me in terms of why it's so difficult? And do you have ideas about how we can change that?
I can
Yeah,
tell
I
you,
mean, go ahead, Trace.
what'd you say?
We're losing you, Amanda. I don't know why.
I feel like, yeah, I
Go
feel
ahead,
like you're
Trace.
like in the, but it starts in the most obvious way. It's grassroots advocacy. It's
Mhm.
the conversations we're having today on your IG Live. It's talking to your friends. It's talking to your family. On our website, there's ways for you to contact your direct state legislator.
And it's the chickmission.org,
Yep.
just so you know.
And it's doing a letter writing campaign. If you don't know what you want to say, if you feel uninformed about the stats, you can email me, tracy@thechickmission.org. I will answer you, and I will send you a template that you should send to your representative, because people in government represent us. They should
Yeah.
do what we need, what we want, and as more and more women are becoming politicians, they're representing our needs at home. And if they don't support the bills and legislation that you think they should support, then we vote them out. And really, that kind of momentum goes from state to state. It gets attention on the federal level. And then we have an opportunity to introduce a bill that will not only teach a man to fish, give a man to fish, teach a man to fish. It'll help so many women in one fell swoop. Sure, there will always be people who need help, both financially and emotional support during their cancer journey, but it's really getting your politicians' ear and telling them what you need, what you want, and organizing your network to do so. Because I'm just one person sending a letter, but if I host a wine and cheese happy hour for my 50 closest friends virtually, everybody can send a letter. You can do it electronically. And like I said, feel free to email me. I'll send you the template.
And I guess, one other question, just sort of bringing it back to this idea of medical menopause. How well informed did you feel about medical menopause? What were going to be the effects of medical menopause, and how that affected your cancer journey? You talked a little bit, Amanda. You said before that you felt kind of less feminine. That's one thing, obviously, when you were dealing with the double mastectomy. But when you got to medical menopause, what did that make you feel? And did you feel well informed? Did you feel like you had agency over what those effects could possibly be, and be educated about them? But did you feel that the medical establishment helped you through that?
Yes and no. I mean, you are hearing probably every third word that they tell you after you hear the words that you have cancer, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure that they said some of these things, but I was just, I
I
was,
really mean after your treatment, when in fact you could be in medical menopause, or did you have a counselor? Did you have somebody who said, okay, here's the thing, you're going to have night sweats, you're going to have hot flashes, you may feel more anxiety, your skin may get very dry? I mean, was somebody there to help with that?
it was more of a reaction to symptoms I was feeling than telling me these are the things that might come up. So that was frustrating. But I think that's why I find it to be so important to tell people that come after me that I connected with about the things that I never knew about before I had cancer, right? And make sure that they're not caught off guard. I hate being caught off guard in this journey.
I mean, of course, I completely understand. And I think, unfortunately, it is not just the cancer journey, but a woman's health journey that becomes quite complicated. And really, we are all very underinformed. So I think what you're talking about is so incredibly important. And I want to make sure that I also understand who has been doing the 26 miles for 26 years. Which one of you?
Oh,
That
that
was that was Amanda. I of course was by her side as always, but tell us what that was about, Amanda.
that was so I lost my dad when I was 18, and so in his honor, on the anniversary of his death, I hiked 26 miles. So
For 26 years.
I mean, it was really this year. I've done a lot of hiking in my life, but the 26th was for this year.
Oh, that makes me so happy, and that you're healthy enough to be able to do that.
Yes.
That
And
feel.
I think what so much of this comes down to, whether it's, grief that we just touched on with Amanda's father, or menopause being more of a reactionary than a proactive way, or even, what to expect after cancer in general, it's all community based. It's all red tent stuff. It's all things we pass to each other, for each other, to make someone else's journey a little bit easier than the one that you took on. And I think, I'm a storyteller by nature. And I think by being honest and sharing these specific experiences takes the place for now of the medical community really stepping up and sharing what to expect when you're not expecting.
Yeah,
And
the support system that you build around you, for sure.
yeah. And I think that that's all of our jobs, whether you're immersed in your menopause journey, or you're a cancer survivor, or you struggle with IVF, or you're dealing with a toxic workplace, whatever it is. I don't think anyone can trust the status quo and, frankly, the patriarchy to help you understand what's going to happen. So you have to turn to other women. And that's why hashtag women supporting women is such an important thing. And it really allows us to move through things with more ease through conversation, normalization, and honesty.
Yeah. And do you find that that's something that you have been able to have with the 167 women that you have helped freeze eggs?
Yeah, and beyond. Um, I think being part of Chick Mission helps our volunteers who have never even experienced cancer understand
Mm.
someone else's infertility journey, or find a way to get involved in their local communities, because suddenly through our work you realize that no one should feel alone in any sort of experience, and we show up for each other, cancer and otherwise.
Amen to that. So tell me a little bit about the fall gala.
Oh, Amanda, share.
Well, God willing, Stacy, let's get together in late October and
Okay. And if we can't, let's do it virtually. I'm there.
I'm like, it's the time to celebrate. We had reached this milestone at the end of last year, which was 100 grants given since our launch. And we decided in January, we're going to go for it this year and do 101 calendar year. So we want to get together in late October in person or virtually to celebrate this milestone and all of the people that helped shout it from the rooftops, donate their time, their money, their resources to make this mission as successful as it's been.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love the idea that you want such a successful mission to come to an end. And I think that we all feel this way when we're talking about women's health, particularly with cancer and the after effects of cancer, like medical menopause. One, we need education. Two, we need agency over our own choices. And the Chick Mission is determined to allow you that opportunity for choice, that you can freeze your eggs before you have to have cancer treatment, and they are going to help you. And eventually, we're going to get government to help you too, because I am so down for this fight. Ladies, I can't thank you enough for your time. I so appreciate that you wanted to come on with me and talk a little bit about both your journeys and what the Chick Mission is out to do. And again, I think it's so important, if you shine a light on something that feels scary or like the monster under the bed, then you realize how much less scary it is. And I think that the biggest thing that I have taken away is that you are creating a community where women can feel safe. They can talk to you about their choices, and you can help take some of the fear out of their own cancer journeys. So I want to thank you so, so much. And if I've missed something, please tell me. You're the chickmission.org, your Chick Mission, right, on Instagram.
Yep.
Is there any other place that people can find you if they need to?
You can find us at greateggfreeze.com should you want to plunge with us. I'm not
I'm
joking.
right away to plunge.
My actual email address is tracy@thechickmission.org. If you have questions, I will answer. I have a pristine inbox.
Oh, I'm so impressed. And I guess
I was like, I do not.
yeah, okay, Good to know. Not everybody should be reachable all the time. But my question is, I guess my final question is, how are you both now? How have you both dealt with cancer, remission, getting cancer again, relapsing? I guess relapsing is the right word, and also all of the other things that you've had to do along with that, the medical menopause, the things that you have had to kind of adapt to. How are you feeling in your lives now?
Yeah, I feel amazing. I feel like I have the most amazing body in the world that told me, spoke up, and showed me symptoms. Something was wrong, and I listened to it, and I trusted my gut, and I sought help. And now I'm sitting here. Yeah, sure. Am I dealing with medically induced menopause? Do I have some scars? I don't care. I have a full life ahead of me because of amazing breakthroughs in science, my incredible team at Memorial, my reproductive endocrinologist. The Chick Mission has healed me. I feel incredible. Very grateful.
That
And
is best news.
I mean, and for me, I'm a success story. I'm 10 years out from my original diagnosis. I got kicked out of Memorial Sloan Kettering and they sent me back into Gen Pop in terms of my medical. And at the end of the day, all the grief I felt about not being able to have a family, the questions about, why we're all here and what am I supposed to do with this kind of second chance at life. I went from, working in show business and being pretty unhappy to finding a way to help other people who sit where I sat.
Yeah.
And that is all I've needed to do to build a healthy and frankly, kind of kick-ass life, especially
Yeah.
with Ron sitting next to me.
Ah, I love it. I love it. I was going to say, you weren't that unhappy when I met you, right? Because you got shoes. No,
Oh,
I'm
I
teasing
went.
you. I'm teasing.
I went
Ladies,
on a
I
walk.
enough for your time. I think it's also important that people understand the stats here, right? I mean, you said that 1 out of 47 women will be diagnosed with some kind of cancer. Is that correct? Those stats. So this is a conversation that I think is so important for us to have had. It is so important to see and hear success stories, but it's not just about what it means to survive through cancer. It's about what you get to do with the rest of your life. And ladies, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for helping us understand medical menopause a little bit better, understand the Chick Mission, and we are always here to support you.
Thank you, Steve.
It was awesome.
Have a great day, everybody.